Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We have a lot of new faces. So my name is Megan Hammond. I'm the president of our chapter. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We love seeing new faces, love seeing old faces, returning faces. I guess I shouldn't say old faces, but returning faces is what I mean. Um, I love to see everybody. So welcome. We do still have a couple of COVID-19 disposable care packages left. I think the last time I was given an update, there were only like 3 or 4 packages left. So if you were in need of one, let us know as soon as possible so we can get one to you. We are requiring you to live within a 50-mile distance of Cleveland if you want it delivered, or be willing to come to the Old Brooklyn campus of MetroHealth to pick it up. So if you're interested in one, send us an email and we can talk to you about it. Those packages have gloves, the disposable surgical masks, some sanitizing wipes, hand sanitizer, kind of things like that. We also still have a couple of emergency preparedness kits left from United Spinal Association. These are a over the shoulder backpack with different things to help you get started with an emergency kit. So there's a flashlight, some zip ties. I forget what all was in there. Trash bags, a poncho. It comes with templates to help you put together your own emergency kit. This one's just kind of like a starter kit. So if you're interested in one of those, send us an email. Our email is unitedspinalneo@gmail.com, and I will put that in the chat here in a little bit as well. I think that is it for now. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and introduce Sunny from Help Hope Live. She is going just to do a little short presentation on the services that she can provide and how we can utilize that if we are in need. So go ahead, Sunny.
Hi guys, thank you so much. As Megan said, my name is Sunny Mullen. I am the outreach manager for Help Hope Live. We are a national nonprofit based out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, that has been around now for almost 40 years. And so I really appreciate you guys giving me the time during your meeting. I know this is, a very sacred space for all of the things you guys need to talk about. So I always appreciate getting to take a small chunk of that. So let me just go into us real quick and see how we can hopefully help some of you guys. At Help Hope Live, it is our mission to support community-based fundraising for people with unmet medical expenses and related costs due to cell and organ transplants, catastrophic injuries, and catastrophic illnesses. And what we do is right in our name. We help ease the financial burden of a medical crisis. We provide hope at a time of overwhelming need, and we support patients to live their lives as fully as possible. And just in 2020 alone, and while we know that 2020 was very different, certainly very, very different, we were still able to help our families fundraise all over the country. And so we helped over 500 new families start their fundraising journeys. We helped over 25 new individuals fundraise for wheelchair accessible vans. And we helped our clients fundraise for over 500 rehab visits and PT visits. So just a small picture of what we can help each and every one of you fundraise toward every day. So how do we work and what's our advantage? Help Hope Live sets you up with a campaign page on our website and a one-on-one client services coordinator that gives you all the tools necessary to go out and put on successful fundraisers within your community. So that personal support is truly something you just won't find anywhere else. That client services coordinator can help you write your story for your campaign page, can help create flyers, help plan your fundraisers, help with all of that day-to-day nitty-gritty work of the fundraising experience that you guys should not have to worry about. We are here to take that on for you. Once you go out and you put on the fundraisers, the funds come back to Help Hope Live and are Help Hope Live assets and are held within regionally restricted funds depending on where you live. So this allows you then to, point number 3, keep your benefits. Because they are Help Hope Live assets, they should not affect any of your asset-based benefits or become taxable income to you or your family. And also the way that we manage the funds allows individuals to use our nonprofit status to have a tax-deductible donation. And also if anyone's employer has a matching gift program, they are then eligible for matching gifts on their donations as well. And so the way that we manage the funds and the way that we are able to disperse the funds out to the vendors, we really provide a sense of safety and responsibility to our entire community, knowing that we are doing right by not only our clients, but also our donors. And so this actually was straight from our clients' mouths last year when we did a survey, was that working with Help Hope Live and in us helping them fundraise reduces their stress, improves their ability to pay their bills, and lessens their feeling of being a burden on their community and their family and friends. And another way that we really provide that safety and reliability for our community is that we medically verify every campaign that we work with, so that your donors and your communities know they are truly donating toward the right type of campaign and for the right reasons. So this medical verification form goes out in the welcome packet that you'll receive after your first phone call with your client services coordinator, and is a very simple 1-sheet form that can be filled out from anyone on your care team, from your social worker to your physical therapist to your lead nurse, really anyone on your team that can verify your condition, that is fine. This doesn't have to be your lead physician that you'll never hear back from. We also use these relationships from medical professionals because we get most of our referrals directly from the medical professional world. So I deal very closely with a lot of physical therapists and financial coordinators and social workers all over the country. We are trying to get our information out to their centers so that when someone's diagnosed or when someone's injured, we get to them as quickly as possible to help their community start fundraising. And so our campaign pages, much like some that you've probably seen before, this is where you can customize. You can write your story, you can plan your fundraisers right here on this page. Your community can even subscribe to this page so that anytime there is an update, they will be automatically notified and you don't need to take that extra step to always update your community. They can leave messages, all of the above can be customized on this campaign page. You can put your videos, your pictures, all of that great stuff to keep your community as involved as possible, to help them realize why you might be fundraising year after year after year, because we all know that you have expenses you're going to need for your entire lifetime. So it's good to let the community know as well. So what are some of those expenses and what do we help you fundraise toward? Equipment being a big one. I know when I first jumped on this call, someone was talking about the FES program, FES bikes. We certainly do help fundraise toward FES bikes, exoskeletons being a big one, prosthetics, wheelchairs, different types of braces, wheelchair modified vehicles is a big one as well. So any type of equipment that is related to your condition, as well as care, service animals, a personal care assistant, any type of travel you might need to do related to your condition. If maybe you travel out of state for therapy once a year, we can help you fundraise toward those expenses as well. Medical marijuana, insurance payments, the list is really ever growing. And especially with quality of life, we assist with different types of wheelchairs. Maybe you need one that's an all-terrain wheelchair or something that can help you get back into activity-based rehab. And even if something is not on paper, something that we say we would cover, come to us and ask the question, because as I said, our list is ever growing. We might not know that there's an expense out there that needs to be covered. And we want you to bring that to us and help us learn more about what is changing in the community year after year. Absolutely. So then you go out, you do the fundraising, you have your bills that you need, you submit your bills to us with our fund request form that can go directly. You can email all of this paperwork directly to our finance team at the fund request email. You can scan in your medical bills. We can make it as easy as possible for you so you don't have to mail all of this in. And we process, as we say, we've processed over 1,000 of these a year. We try to do these as quickly as possible for our clients. Within about 5 to 8 business days, if not sooner, we get these bills turned around and paid directly to your vendors. We do check requests. We do check processing twice a week. So we do this as quickly as we can. And we always offer direct deposit if someone's interested, but we generally like to pay direct to vendors so that you guys don't have to put any money out up front if you don't have to. And fundraising help, how do we, the client services coordinators are here to provide so much one-on-one assistance directly with you. Press releases, flyers, social media campaigns, fundraising packets, all of that, like I mentioned before, all of that behind the scenes work, that day-to-day work of fundraising that you shouldn't have to worry about and certainly shouldn't have to worry about doing on your own. We are here to help you with that. And you get that client services coordinator that you can get over email or on the phone. And you have access to our finance team as well over email and over the phone that can help walk you through all of this. And so this is just one of our many client stories. This is Stephanie Golden. His wife, Katrina, is one of our brand ambassadors. Both Katrina and Stephanie were injured in an ATV accident. Stephanie, unfortunately, did experience a spinal cord injury in the accident, and we helped him fundraise toward a game-changing stair lift while doing a poker tournament with his community. And so that is just one example of so many of the different types of fundraisers that we can help individuals do. It truly depends on your community and what your friends and family are interested in and what you're interested in as to what we can help you use to fundraise. We also offer many partners that offer different types of services. We have, van partnerships, different types of equipment partnerships. We also have adaptive clothing, and we are ever growing to this list as well. When we bring in new vendor partnerships, we're always trying to be able to offer more to our clients and our community, as in discount codes or even just that relationship, knowing that we can suggest something to you that we truly trust this product. And as part of our resource directories, we also have our pretty extensive resource directories that live on our website right now that can offer so many different resources for anything you might need. They're very extensive and they're broken down by category, so you can easily find them. So this has been a real passion project of ours for the last year, is getting these resource directories up and running. And so that's kind of us in a very small nutshell. And so I can just answer some common questions is, one is, if we are interested in fundraising, how do we get started? It's very easy. You can either call our 800 number or go onto our website and click the Get Started button yourself. And that will lead you through the application, and you will eventually get a phone call from one of our client services coordinators. So you will have that first conversation with a client services coordinator. They'll walk you through, what our program looks like for you specifically, what your condition is, what types of needs you might have, who your community might look like, all of the above, really. And if you think at the end of that conversation you're still interested in fundraising, they will send you the welcome packet, and then they'll ask for a $25 donation, which can come from anyone in your community. And that gets your campaign page live on our website. And at that point, we are just waiting for you to send back the welcome packet with the terms of service signed and the medical verification form signed, and you are good to go. So this process, starting with us, can take 48 hours. It can take a few weeks. It really hinges on that medical verification form, because we really want to have that back to before we start dispersing any funds that are raised in your honor. And another question that comes up a lot is what makes us different than other fundraising platforms, because we know they're all out there. So we've already talked about this, but just to break it down clearly, is first and foremost, our tax deductibility status. The fact that we are a nonprofit allows all donations to be tax deductible up to the law that each state allows. And the way that we manage the funds allows you to keep your coverage. As we said, they are Help Hope Live assets and they are raised in your honor. So we are here to honor all of your expenses, to honor the donor's intent, but by us managing those funds, they allow you to keep your asset-based benefits and to not have any of that become taxable income to your family. And the personal coordinator, the finance team, all of the custom materials and all of that we're able to offer, you just won't find anywhere else. I personally just don't think. And so we are here to offer all of that personal support to really make you as successful as possible in your fundraising efforts. And so just straight from our clients, what made them use Help Hope Live is that the donations were tax deductible. The nonprofit status encouraged trust within their donors. A medical professional had recommended them to start fundraising with us. How we manage the funds, and that the fact of how we manage the funds wouldn't jeopardize their asset-based benefits and any fees that might be involved. So we do have a 5% fee on all donations that come in, but we do not charge our families or our individuals anything for all of the services that we provide. So the only fee comes off of the donation from your community. We do offer the opportunity for the donor to be able to cover those fees online when they are donating. And we are seeing about 50 to 60% of our online donors choosing to cover those fees so that the client is able to benefit from more of that donation. And another, really important thing is we all know it's hard to ask for money. It's not something anyone truly likes to do. What if you're nervous or not sure how to start? We will start everyone off with a personalized video appeal that you'll receive within the first month or two of becoming a client. We use your pictures, we use your video, and this is something that is then a direct ask from our executive director in her words that uses your story to go out to your community. So it's really an ask from us. It's not an ask from you at that point. And it's a link that we give you that you can then send out to your community. So just an easy way to start your fundraising. We'll also get you started on maybe some Facebook fundraising or some easier ways to start your fundraising while maybe you're planning your first major, not even a major event, but your first fundraising event. Take some time with that and figure out what will truly work while maybe doing some Facebook fundraising or using this video to first put your toe in the water a little bit. And as one of our brand ambassadors recently told me, don't be afraid to ask for help, even in the hardest of times. If it scares you, do it. I know I have to think about that almost every day as well. And speaking of fundraisers, so like I said, are a national nonprofit. So fundraisers look different in every state and every community. We can help from anything like a spaghetti dinner, a silent auction, a benefit concert, jewelry sales online. The biggest takeaway from all of this is that honestly, there is nothing too big or too small. You think a fundraiser, it doesn't always have to be an annual golf outing or a major event of some sort. We've had people have very successful community yard sales or have very successful consistent jewelry sales online. And so it's really just a matter of figuring out what your interests are and what will interest your community and keep them coming back to your events. And obviously this year, we've also turned to virtual fundraising, which works for a lot of people as well. Different types of watch parties. We had one client who does Star Trek watch party. I mean, talk about figuring out what your community likes. She was a Trekkie, and so she chose to have a Star Trek watch party. So there's really no limit to what can be turned into a fundraiser, I believe. And so that's Help Hope Live. That's, we are here to help you fundraise for your needs. We know that you're going to have medical needs for your entire lifetime, and we're here to help you live as independent as a life as you choose to live, whether that's a modified vehicle or home modifications, different types of rehab, different types of equipment. We're here to help you fundraise for all of that. So I just appreciate your time today. And just if you ever have any questions, Megan has my information, you have my information here. And certainly if people have questions now, but never hesitate to reach out. And just, I hope we can start helping some of you fundraise for your medical expenses.
Awesome. Thank you, Sunny.
Thank you.
Thank you,
If,
Sunny.
if anybody needs her information again, let me know. Email us. I can definitely get you connected. For the sake
Thank
of
you.
for the sake of time, we're just going to keep on moving. Our second presenter is Dr. Ann Bryden. I think that's my first time calling you doctor. Congratulations. But Ann is here tonight to speak with us. I don't have your full title up,
Okay.
I'm sorry, to speak with us about a research study that she's working on currently. So Ann, I'm just gonna let you go ahead and take it from here. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Megan. And I'm going to figure out how to share my screen, even though I do this all the time. It's always a little nervous doing it in front of a group when you're nervous. So let me go ahead and hope the right thing shares. Right slide, wrong place. Okay. What are you seeing? Are you seeing the presentation view?
No, we are seeing your notes view.
And how about now?
Your presentation view.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. So I was teasing Megan at the start about notes and that sort of thing, but I'm highly reliant on notes because I don't want to forget things, and I tend to if my mind runs away. So at any rate, I'm looking at notes and happily able to see most of you too while I do it. So that's a perk.
I think we see your presenter.
Oh, you do? Well, that's why it's so you can see, all righty. Well, is it that terrible? Can you still see everything?
That's good.
Yeah, I think it's good.
Okay, all right. Well, okay, so thank you for the introduction. You might see some of my notes in the whatever, but hey, we're all human and need notes. So Megan, thank you for the introduction. This is an opportunity, I think, for me to share with all of you a project that we are doing that looks at the impacts of navigating care transitions on the caregivers to people with spinal cord injury. And I'll tell you why I'm focusing on caregivers in just a moment. But just kind of as an overview, this is a project that starts in a couple weeks, well, actually at the end of next week. And it is funded by the Craig H. Nielsen Foundation. Those of you who don't know about the Craig H. Nielsen Foundation, they're a really good entity, a really good foundation, and they fund a lot of really cool things that are geared toward helping people with spinal cord injury. The project team I'd like to introduce. So I think most, if not all of you know Kim Anderson. We came to this meeting maybe a couple of years ago and talked about a project we're currently working on looking at recovery perspectives. So we're continuing to do that work. And much of the team in this project is also the same team doing that project. So I'd like to introduce Brian Gran, who's with us tonight on camera. So Brian is a sociologist and a professor of law at Case Western Reserve University. So Brian was my dissertation advisor, as a matter of fact. So kind of guided me through the whole process of getting my PhD, which happened last summer. Also on our team is Susan Hinze, and Susan was also on my committee, and she's a sociologist at Case Western Reserve as well, and has obviously guided me through the dissertation work. Another member of our team is Lopez, and what he brings to our team is guidance in some of the educational and counseling aspects for this particular project, which will become more apparent. Our clinical coordinator is Kimberly McKay, who I think a lot of you know because she's reached out to many of you, I think, for different research projects and maybe seeing if you, need some of those COVID relief packages, that sort of thing. And then, of course, all of you, because one of the things we really like to do with this project is to be able to tap into people with spinal cord injury and their caregivers and really find out, what are the things that are needed most in the spinal cord injury community, and how can we do better work that can result in something that's going to be the most meaningful at the end of the project. So we have some money that we can donate to the chapter in return for some of your feedback and being at meetings like this, listening to me talk about the project. So just real quick, a couple of motivations behind the project, which I sort of already alluded to, happened to be the work that I did getting my dissertation, getting my PhD. For those of you who don't know, I am an occupational therapist and have been since 1991. So I've been working in OT and spinal cord injury for a long time. In my, I'll say early, but probably mid 40s, decided to go back and get a PhD in sociology. So that's sort of what started all of this. So some of the things that kind of led me to the work that I did, which was looking at how people with spinal cord injury navigate resources after injury, kind of stemmed from things that people shared with me while doing completely different projects. So I was focusing mostly on arm and hand projects, and for the first time in a long time working with people in the inpatient setting, so really a lot earlier after injury. And some of the things, and I don't think that Steve Polakowski would mind me giving a shout out to him tonight, but Steve, among many who I've known just in conversation, shared some of the struggles that you all know that you face early after injury. It's not enough that your body has changed and your functions have changed, but now you also have to figure out, what to do about modifying your home, or what to do about getting transportation, or how to get caregivers, or any number of things that are really challenging on top of all of that. So that's a little bit behind kind of the motivations. But what project am I talking about? So this particular project, we are looking at investigating experiences that are encountered by caregivers of persons with spinal cord injury. And I say caregivers because, I think caregiving goes both ways, right? Just because you're someone with spinal cord injury doesn't mean that you can't be a caregiver. But early after injury, I think the focus is on people who are really just trying to heal, trying to get stronger, trying to do your therapy, trying to learn your bowel and bladder regimens, doing all of those things. So some of the resource navigation efforts fall to family, friends, other loved ones to kind of pitch in. So our first goal is to investigate the experiences that the caregivers have during this process, particularly during transitions in care. So you all have probably been through a number of transitions from the moment of injury, from getting to the emergency department. Maybe that emergency department wasn't really equipped to manage your injury, so you had another transition to another hospital, and then there's a transition to rehabilitation, a transition to wherever you go after that acute inpatient rehabilitation. So unfortunately, all of those things are really, it can really have a strong impact, not only on people with spinal cord injury, but their caregivers. The second goal of the project is really to look at a systematic and goal-oriented attainment intervention, where we look at two things. We look at a caregiver's self-appraised problem-solving ability, and we also implement kind of a really systematic process of setting goals. And so we're examining whether or not that has an impact on whether or not caregivers are, able to do a better job at navigating resources. That's probably the least interesting piece of this project to you all tonight. The final output and final goal of the project, though, is to really develop and disseminate an online guide that can be used to assist not just caregivers, even though that's our focus, but also anyone with a spinal cord injury trying to navigate transitions across stages of care, which usually involve looking for various resources. So this is a very wordy slide, and I know, Brian, you're probably rolling your eyes at this one. But in a nutshell, we really want to get a stronger knowledge base on how people are impacted psychosocially. And as I mentioned, care transitions really kind of beget the need to access services and lots of other resources in order to attain recovery and community reintegration. I'm going to share some background, I think, with you, because one of the things we noticed while developing this project is there's a lot in the researchy world or medical world, a lot of literature that looks at impacts on caregivers in from the standpoint of physical stress and emotional stress, but there's really not a whole lot of knowledge out there about navigating resources and managing things like, Social Security disability, or, changing your insurance, or having to go on to Medicaid, that sort of thing. And I think what I've learned from talking with many of you is that there's more savviness required than ever of caregivers and people with SCI to really be able to access what we deem sufficient and appropriate care for people with spinal cord injury. So that includes knowledge about how to work within and across various health and social settings, and also dealing with the various insurance institutions that, unfortunately become a part of your life. So literature review, another kind of researchy term, but basically there's just a lot of literature that shows that there's an increasingly shortened length of stay following spinal cord injury. And we find that adds even more stress on caregivers, right? Because people are discharged earlier. They're usually not as healthy, maybe still feeling ill, at increased risk for secondary complications. And then some of you go to communities where you don't have access to specialized spinal cord injury care. So that poses another challenge. And then there's other research out there that look at caregivers as being the sole resource of continuity through transitions in care. So things, like when people move from one health care practitioner to another, or one healthcare setting to another. So each one of those transitions can risk pitfalls, or what they call like a discontinuity in care, because now you're dealing with a new team, new people. They have to learn your story all over again. They may not get all of the details from the last place that you were at. And I'm sure that I'm preaching to the choir to many of you who know that, these problems can really impact your safety. They can really affect your well-being, and they can really, in the end, result in a lot more healthcare spending that needs to happen. So I guess the final point too is what we found is there's really not a lot written about the hidden work that caregivers and people with spinal cord injury need to do in order to get all of your ducks in a row, so to speak. So even as a healthcare professional working in spinal cord injury, you hear the stories, right? But sometimes you don't really understand the sheer depth of the work and the phone calls and the negotiating and the dead ends and the more phone calls and, different websites and et cetera. So this is really something where, we're trying to get a handle on getting more information about what's happening, but more importantly, coming up with a way to guide people through the process. So I have a little bit of just a few excerpts from people that we've talked to for various projects. And this is an example of how a shortened length of stay can really impact somebody. So this was a support person who was talking about how her husband, they weren't even in the rehab building for a week before insurance companies started saying, we're not going to cover your stay. And so she was just kind of astounded, and they kept asking all sorts of questions about, what had she lined up as far as Medicaid, were they going to go to a skilled nursing facility, et cetera, et cetera. And she and certainly her husband weren't even there yet. Like they weren't thinking, it was too much to process. Becomes a big problem. I guess another example is really the challenges of navigating supports and services in addition to direct hands-on care. So what you see in this quote from somebody who kind of felt like things were going to be okay when they were in the hospital, but when they got home and had to, manage some of the needs of their person with SCI, it was a lot. And then trying to move forward with other things like home modifications, or, even seeking resources to get more hands-on care in the home really just became overwhelming. And then I think there are often regional challenges seeking access to services. I already mentioned how, sometimes it's really hard to find specialized spinal cord injury care everywhere because it's a condition that doesn't happen to very many people. So it's also very tricky sometimes to find caregivers who can service a certain area, or for, smaller amounts of time versus larger amounts of time, or, county to county differences. And, this person says sometimes he felt like he might as well live in Alaska because, nobody really knew anything. And the county that he was from wasn't really that far away, but it just shows you the differences, the county to county differences. So I'm going to move a little more quickly here because I think volunteers have proven to be a really good resource. I know some of you function in that way and help people with volunteer services. But what that kind of gets to is, people get good information, but they have to get good information from lots of different people. Like Steve has told me this numerous times. You get like 10% of the information from, 9 different people, and you're trying to piece together what's right and what makes sense for you. So in the research world, we say things like specific aims, and these are just basically your project goals. And I think basically our goal then is to have conversations with people with spinal cord injury and their caregivers, and really kind of get to the heart of some of the strains. Actually, what I wanted to get to here, and this might be a problem because it's possibly too small for you to see. How we get this information is we develop what's called an interview guide. Okay, so what that means is we have kind of a preset, set of topics that we'd like to talk to people about and get information about, but it doesn't mean that it's a, straight survey. So the conversation can go in many different ways. And as long as we kind of circle back around and try to hit on all of the topics, that's the purpose of the interview guide. So one of the things that I would like to get information from some of you, and I think probably the best way to do it is maybe send this out as a handout, Megan, maybe at the end of the meeting, and just really get your feedback about some of the things that we're asking about, in terms of, the things you have to manage, like early after your injury. Are we missing anything? Is it too much? Are there things that we shouldn't be asking? So really any kind of critical review any of you can give from your own perspectives about what you feel that we should be getting from people to get, more knowledge to make a better resource at the end of the project would be fantastic. Specific aim 2, and I'm sorry, I thought I hid that slide. Specific aim 3 is really the one that is kind of the outcome of the project, right? So we really want to develop and disseminate an online guide that can assist caregivers and people with SCI in all of the things that have to be done with navigating transitions across care. So our hypothesis obviously is that that's really going to help people. But more importantly, I think our real goals are to get information from the caregivers, from the people with SCI, and kind of learn from them the resources. And I have a lot of this information from many of you who've helped me with other projects that is already kind of being synthesized and put together. And we're just hoping to build on this and get additional information. But this is kind of how I feel about it. It's kind of an overwhelming task. There's, I think, a lot of pieces of information, and we have to figure out a way to make it the most useful for people. And so that people don't come across some, outcome or some, resource that doesn't make your head want to explode, right? So sorry, I was teaching a little bit this semester, and so this was one of the ways I used to keep students engaged, because they like these, what do we call them, emojis, or yeah, I'm that old. So, but anyway, this analysis is really, we want to pay particular attention to the different things that emerge from what people tell us related to the different transitions, and particularly engagement with not just your health institutions, but social institutions, right? Like trying to deal with Medicaid home and community-based waiver services, trying to get your equipment, any number of things, or even just trying to access things in your communities. So our hope is that we will use the information kind of as stories and examples, so we can share examples based on people at all different kinds of levels of injury with different experiences, and maybe choosing something like caregiving challenges and what somebody did to overcome it. And then there's a really popular set of books, What to Expect When Expecting. So this would be kind of a what to expect approach for spinal cord injury. So it might be like, you're in rehabilitation now. What should you expect? What should you anticipate? What should be the next step? And a lot of that almost immediately is, where are you going to go next? And that was feedback that I've gotten from, a lot of people. If they can't come back home right away, where do they go, right? What's the next step for rehab? What's the step down for rehab? So this is all throwing it out there because we're just starting the project. We do have a lot of great information from the other two projects that I spoke. I'm really looking more for feedback from all of you about, number one, would this be helpful? What things should we add? It's going to be an ongoing project. You'll hear from us hopefully again as we start to get some of the data and get your feedback on that, because I think that would be really valuable, and really just kind of alert us to where maybe the blinders are or where we should focus. I've had conversations with lots of folks at Metro too, and really it's just, I think everyone's trying to do their best with the resources that they have in hand, but the coordination, I think, is where things sometimes fall short. And I guess having said that, I'd like to hear from all of you, and I know Brian would like to hear from all of you as well. Brian, do you have anything that you want to add?
Oh, that was a great job. I really appreciated the emoji too.
Thanks. I'm glad I could remember what it's called, but so open for comments. Is it a bad idea? I'll warm up the crowd that way. Is it a bad idea? I hope not.
No, I think it's a good idea. I think it's a great idea, actually. A lot of things that you were saying hit Rustin, right?
Yeah.
We can give you lots of information or lots of experience that we went through recently.
Well, and see, it's not, I think it's unfortunately never ending, right? Because things change. You hit a groove for a while, but then God forbid you get a pressure sore or something and you're down, or, some piece of equipment is broken, or, you go back to work, you're trying to figure out, how to make it all work. So it just seems like what people have shared with me, there's always things to navigate.
Mm-hmm.
Or balance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. And balance is challenging these days.
I think what you said too with like the plan of care, what's the next step is like a big thing too. Like when Jared had his injury, Russ and I, we didn't know where to go or what to do. We were totally lost with all the resources that were available. It was really
Still learning.
Yeah, we really are still learning a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was no like list or pathway guideline to do this, and this. You have a spinal cord injury, do this, do this, do this. It's not out there anywhere. So everything was very new and everything was challenging, and we were being told different things by several different people.
Yeah, that is challenging. And at first, I have to apologize. I know Jared, but I thought you were, because I realized you're both Jared's parents now, right? I think I've met mom.
Yeah,
There, yes. Hi, sorry about that. Of course. But yeah, and I think the information is problematic and it's fluid, right? As soon as you figure out a process for an institution, it might change. I'm a little concerned, it's going to be it's going to be a pretty large project to come up with something. So are there things that any of you would recommend focusing on first? Like what would be the greatest need?
I guess, and this is, I mean, from what perspective? From acute rehab to leaving or beyond? I guess that would be the starting point.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So we're looking at all of those transitions. So, but since we're starting with people new after injury, let's just maybe start with leaving rehab.
Yeah, it's really like Kim said, it's really the getting fed by a water hose of information, and you don't know how to prioritize it. You don't know what's going to bite you in the end if you don't make the right decision. Not necessarily a step-by-step guide, but there really should be assessment of each individual's case, because a lot of them are different. Some caregivers want to do everything and save the world. Other caregivers may just need to do the minimum because that's all they could do. So the I guess I'll just put a pin in it there.
Okay, that's really helpful.
You know, I was just going to say with insurance too, insurance is a big thing for rehab. I mean, Jared went, what, like 15 visits and such, and we weren't sure if he was going to go back for PT or OT until it went through with the insurance. So, and he had to be evaluated or assessed every 10th visit or something.
Yep.
And
So,
then
some of it's hard to explain too, because this being such a, happening, at least for us, happening during this COVID pandemic has been,
absolutely
just
horrible.
putting all that. So some of it may have been, there might have been something that had better communication, but, as for, well, at least for us not being able to go up and see our son for 6.5 weeks and having to deal with, Metro had a in-between person, like not a social worker, but a case manager that we have to wait for a phone call from him to see what the doctors were talking about. Everything was just so it's really kind of hard to put some of this into perspective because of just the type of year it was, but it was so as confusing as it can be. It was really, I mean, you're not going to have this all the time, but having,
COVID, you mean?
yeah, with the COVID, but having an almost like an outline of something or something to follow would be so helpful. But there's so much stuff that we missed or we didn't know how to ask. Again, this year is totally off the chart, so it's hard to explain or how to assume how it would be regularly when you're dealing with doctors and you can go talk to them and you could be informed. They did the best they could, but under the circumstances, it was very difficult to get information. And it would be nice. I think the idea they had, having a case manager as being the go-to person, helped, but there's just so much that the analogy Mark gave is the garden hose is exactly it. There's just so much. You don't know what to filter out that's the most important. You're getting told things that you don't really understand. And for us, for Jared's injury, I think it can be very distressing, at least for us as parents or as caregivers, finding out that there's these goals. They're talking about our son and what the perception is that where he should be in this week and this week. And it has to do with insurance. There's so much that's there that it's just mind blowing. We don't know if something isn't followed right. Does that take things away? Does he have to stay in the hospital longer? And again, with the pandemic, it makes it very difficult, but there's just so much that's involved. I think insurance, if we have insurance like we do, you just assume that things are going to follow a pathway, and it's not exactly that easy.
Right, yeah.
And there's so much things that's so, and part of it's probably on us not knowing enough about it, but there's so much stuff that's there, and they did the best they could, but it was very, very difficult trying to put things in a category that you could understand or some type of structure. There's just so much.
And I think a few things pop up as you're talking. It's a lot of times you just don't know the questions to ask.
Yes, that's
Don't
the
know
other
what
thing.
you don't know.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
So one of the thoughts that we've had kind of as a team is if we can at least get those questions out there as a start. And, we might find an answer to one of the questions, but then it changes, by Friday. But at least the question is still there. The question is the same. And, we just keep working at finding, the different answers and identifying the, flow. I would have to say that COVID was not easy. When I was doing my dissertation work, I wasn't dealing with, people weren't having to deal with COVID, but for Kim Anderson's DoD project, that's the heart of what we're doing. So we're understanding a lot of the challenges, especially if people are sent to skilled facilities after rehab and not being able to have families there where families are so critical to the care. I think has been.
I think one of the other problems is once you know the question and you're like, you're maybe a year out or so and you're like ready to deal with it, and you know the question and have to backtrack and figure out who to ask the question to, because you don't know where that connection is per se.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then even calling them and not having the right number and, the circles of phone calls, right? It's a lot.
Yeah, it's that to all the things that everybody else said, at the caregiver side too, but it's also medically, like with Joey, with my son, what kind of test do I have to try to get him to, what kind of medical test, or is there a surveillance protocol for people with spinal cord injuries to go and get bone scan, bone density scans at a certain time in the injury? What kind of blood work needs to be evaluated? I mean, all these things that, it only pops up because there's an issue. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly, Mark. That is so true.
So if part of this could be, a track on the medical side for caregivers to kind of, if it is even possible to get in front of the 8 ball.
Proactive, not reactive, which is how our healthcare system tends to be.
Right, but there is you could develop a surveillance kind of protocol where, you look at all aspects, just like we went to our family doctor, and the doctor is very good. A lot of you guys probably know him, but he just said, Mark, spinal cord injuries, I see maybe 1 or 2 of them in 5 years. You need to go back to Dr. Wilson. We were using him as the family doctor. But there's issues that you guys all know, and the doctors that deal with spinal cord injuries know what to be out on the lookout for. Past secondary issues, just things that affect their general health.
There was an effort by the American Spinal Injury Association, which, Dr. Nemunitis is on the board of that group, and, several of us have been on committees at different times. And so what they did is the primary care, they developed an ad hoc primary care committee and put together a series of articles that were targeted toward primary care physicians and allied health professionals who do not see people with spinal cord injury on a regular basis, to teach them those types of things to look for. So that's a resource that I think is useful, but we should also, put it in, terms for families and people with SCI as well. Each paper was written by a member of the team, someone who lived with spinal cord injury, somebody who, is working in spinal cord injury, and then a primary care person or therapist. I think we're making steps, but clearly it's not gotten out to everybody. And I know we're getting on our time here, and I just wanted to, I hope Cheryl doesn't get mad at me for calling her out, but Cheryl Crayon has been a really good sounding board for me, being part of the Gerson Center. at MetroHealth. And, you know, I've kind of an interesting story because there was a participant in my dissertation work who was told that he would only get 15 transportation visits with his particular insurance. So he was getting home therapy and really working hard to be able to transfer so that he could ultimately get back to Metro and get the, you know, specialized rehabilitation that he needed, only to find that, you know, that's a negotiable point, right? So he learned that with that particular insurance, it, you know, if you don't know to ask if something's negotiable, if someone tells you, you get this and this is what you get. I think one of the other things I learned talking with all of you is just keep asking, right? Find other ways.
Hey, Ann,
But Cheryl would key to that.
as I'm listening to some of this and I think back as I was going through it, you kind of wake up in the morning, like for myself, I wake up in the morning to find out I'm injured and I'm paralyzed and you don't know where to go next. And it's all not laid out at all. But some of the first things are almost like a flow chart. I mean, it's like, are you workman's comp? Are you insured? Do you have Medicaid? Do you need to get Medicaid? I mean, like there's almost like certain questions you have to deal with right off the bat that then if you're going on Medicaid, here's your 3 providers, Buckeye, Case, or Buck, you know, the 3 different providers, here's your benefits and lower things from that. And then, you know, they're talking about the bone density scans and things like that. You almost have something farther out that's another set of like when you do maintenance on a car every 100,000 miles, you know that. So you have your first beginning choices that you have to make these things. And I know if those were laid out in a roadmap in front of me at first, you can almost navigate to where you're going to have to go after that from one step to the next, because you have decisions that are made based on certain scenarios and you can pretty much pick those different ones out. And then once you're at home, you have a whole nother set of problems that you could do a flow chart on of, you know, rehab and picking your therapy. And is it inpatient, outpatient? Is your nurse is coming there, all that different stuff. And then how often you need to schedule an appointment with your doctor and all that stuff. But they kind of go down 3 different roads, whether you're on workman's comp or Medicaid or private insurance. And then that makes all those decisions start to go there, because then if you're on Medicaid, you got to deal with different trust funds and all that kind of stuff and look down those roads. I mean, everybody, I think that's really your 3 different avenues. And then from there, it all splits off. So if you worked on one or a couple people that were on each different scenario and how they navigated it, you could kind of draw a flow chart that kind of put things in the right direction for everybody.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Great suggestion. I like the idea of a roadmap, because that way you may not have all of the, you know, stops along the way, but you kind of know the directions, and the different scenarios can kind of be built in along that road.
Well, and to understand that you're going to go to an acute and then do a subacute, but to be able to see all that laid out right off the bat and understand, like, then you have the target of home at the end of that, you know, and these are your steps you got to do to get there. And here's your different things you're going to have to deal with your bank accounts. Here's the different things you're going to have to deal with facilities and nursing groups. But if you lay them down that different way, I think I help on the one section and, you know, the other guys that have gone down a different way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. There's a lot of pathways for sure. I don't know how long your meetings typically go, so I don't want to keep anybody longer than necessary, but happy if there's any last questions or comments.
Say we do usually only go until 8 p.m. But if there is one last question, we can do that. Or comment.
Just thanks, Ann, for the presentation. It was great.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yes, it was very, very good.
I, you know, obviously can't, you know, people have been very generous with sharing knowledge. And so hopefully by all of us working together, we can move that knowledge forward then to, you know, make processes a little bit more manageable for people.
Mhm.
So thanks.
Mhm. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, okay, so yes, again, thank you, Anne, for coming. I know Sunny had to hop off, but thank you to her as well for presenting tonight.
Yeah.
Anne's information is up on the screen, but if you need me to send it to you, let me know. And I will get the handouts out to everybody for you to give your feedback on the questions that the interview guides may involve. So everybody, thank you for joining us tonight. We had an incredible group. I think 25 is one of our biggest crowds lately. We kind of keep growing, which is awesome to see every month, new people, and the same people keep coming back. So that's awesome. Have a great night, have a great month, and we will see you in May. If anybody needs anything, reach out. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.